My name is Devin Haskins, and this is the Run for Your Life podcast. Welcome to the Run for Your Life podcast. On this week's show, I wanted to talk about the effects that running have on relationships. First, before I get started, let me say this week's show is sponsored by my kids, who allowed me to get an extra half hour of sleep last night. Just a little information about myself. I have 3 kids. All of them are below the age of 9, and the youngest one is 6 months. So, yeah, I looked back at last week's show, and I could see like my eyes were half open. And forgive me, y'all, for looking like I was casting extra from The Walking Dead. All right, getting on with the show. When I first met my wife in our kidless, less sleep-deprived years, we both had our hobbies. Of course, one of mine was and still is running, and she welcomed everything that came with that, with my running hobby. I know what you're saying, big whoop. Who wouldn't want someone that out there trying to make themselves healthier? And it's more complicated than that for some people. The things that I've learned over the years running and listening to some of my closest friends who run is sometimes running as a hobby can be a challenge on some relationships. With running comes the prereqs of long training hours, which, that can cause free time issues, no quality time spent with your family or your significant other. Second thing, for those who train with running with groups, you have your running mates, which can cause jealousy issues with some relationships. And then you got your financial commitment, which, being real, running is not an expensive hobby unless you make it. You got your running gear, which can range a few $100 a few times a year. And then you add in things like, racing fees and lodging if you travel out of town, which, those prices can sneak up on you if you're not careful with your budgeting. I think one year I can remember spending $1,000 between running gear, racing fees, and travel. And that was way over my budget. I'm through with Frank, so anything over $500 is like that's too much for me. So I had to reevaluate my strategy the next following year. So those are the 3 most common things that I've heard from some of my closest friends that have hindered relationships with both new and seasoned runners: time, jealousy, and money. So the question is, can running and relationships coexist? Yes, they can. Here's some of the ways that you can address some of these concerns. The first, easiest one that you can address is the time aspect. Let's face it, running takes a dedication of time. I was reading somewhere in a really good Runner's World article. It stated that marathoners who aspire to finish their race in less than 4 hours needed to train between 1 to 1.5 hours a day, 5 to 7 days a week. That may not seem like a lot of time at first glance, but when you factor in things like work and other time commitments, that can be a big hunk of your day. How can you build a relationship if your training is taking up most of your time? Simple way of dealing with that is time management. Most of my friends that I run with run in the mornings. Getting up early before work to get miles in is a good way to start your day, and it leaves the afternoon open for your social life. And it's not to say if you run afternoons that you're doomed to have a bad relationship. I think the key is to develop a schedule that leaves you time for a social life outside of running, unless you're one of those people who uses running as a social life, which that's another topic for another show. The second aspect is jealousy, which jealousy is a tougher nut to crack. There are 2 forms of jealousy that I've heard expressed by runners. I've been lucky enough, again, to be married to someone that welcomes and have no issues with me running. And I think for the most part, that's what most runners have support of the people that they're dating or are married to. However, there's some people that deal with their spouse being jealous of the fact that they're in shape or getting in shape. You also have those people who significant others are jealous of the people that they run with. A good way of fixing these jealousy issues is reassurance and patience. If you have to invite your spouses or significant other out on a run with you, do that. Set up a double date with your significant other and your running mates to help reassure them that And there's nothing to fear. What people say, people fear what they don't understand. Your spouse might be jealous of your weight loss, the transformation that you're going through, and the attention that brings. Reassure them and encourage them that your fitness level transformation is something that you're doing to better yourself for yourself and them. And if after all of these efforts you still have a partner who's jealous of your running hobby, you got some bigger issues at hand, and you probably have a tough decision to make. The last item, the financial ramifications of running, is simple. Fighting about finances, of course, is one of the major causes of divorce. Running is not an expensive hobby to take up. If you find yourself spending too much money on a race or gear or travel, develop a budget. Allot money aside for your hobby, and this should be a easy fix for some. And if not, seek out some professional help with a financial coach. And hopefully that can help you get on track and it not affect your relationship. That's my show for this week. Next week's show, I'm going to talk about a monster that affects all of us at one point or another, all of us runners. So until next week, please share, like, and subscribe, and download podcasts wherever you download your podcasts. But until then, be safe out there on the roads and trails. So until then, peace.